Welcome to Burn the Rules with Chet Hirani. This podcast is for people who know leadership isn't about titles, noise, or ticking boxes. It's about how you think, how you show up, and how you perform when pressure is real. I'm Chet Hirani, and I work with leaders and high performers across business, sport, and life all over the world who want to take control of how they lead and perform. Not by copying someone else's rules, but by understanding themselves first. Every conversation here is grounded in experience, reflection, and practical insight. So if you're ready to question what leadership has been taught to be and decide what it means for you, you're in the right place. I want to tell you about the worst thing ever I did as a leader. And I'm not going to be dramatic about this. This was the moment I realized I'd become the kind of leader I swore I'd never be. I was running a global payments transformation project, high stakes, high visibility, executive oversight, breathing down my neck, and something went wrong. The delivery slipped, targets were missed, and I was under pressure and I felt it. So I called in a team meeting and I absolutely lost it. I called out each member individually in front of everyone. I didn't coach. I didn't ask questions. I ran what felt like a performance interrogation. I even surprised myself with how far I went. The room went silent, not the productive kind of silent, the kind where you feel people shutting down in real time. Eyes dropped, body language closed. And in that moment, without realizing it, I'd broken something. Trust and safety. The one thing that actually makes a team work. And after that meeting, my team didn't push back anymore. They didn't challenge. They didn't bring ideas. They just complied. And I mistook that compliance for alignment for months. And that's what this episode's about. Your team might be compliant. Your team might be hitting targets. Your team might be showing up on time and saying the right things in meetings. They might still be quietly breaking. The question is, would you even notice? Welcome to Burn the Rules. I'm Chet Hirani, and today's episode is called Your Team is Quietly Breaking and It's Your Fault. Now, that title alone will make some of you defensive, which is good because defensiveness is exactly the problem. Most leaders hear your team is struggling and immediately think, that's not my team. They think it's the other leader. The bad manager down the corridor, the one who yells, the one who micromanages, never them. But the data says otherwise. And in my experience, coaching executives globally says otherwise. So before you actually tune out of this, before you decide this one isn't for you, sit with the discomfort because the leaders who need this episode and need this episode the most are the ones most convinced they don't. So here it is. Look, numbers don't lie. And let me give you some data that should keep every leader awake tonight. Globally, only 21% of employees are engaged at work. T1. That means nearly 8 out of every 10 people in your team are either sleepwalking through their role or actively disengaged. Not struggling in silence, completely checked out. And this isn't some fringe report. That's Gallup's State of Global Workplace, the largest study of its kind here. But here's the number that should really sting. Manager engagement has dropped to 27%, and managers account for 70% of the variance in team engagement. Let me say that again. Your managers, the people you've put in charge of your people, are disengaged themselves, and their disengagement is infecting everyone underneath them. 83% of workers report feeling some degree of burnout. Burned out employees are 63% more likely to take a sick day. And here's the worst part. Only 38% of C-suite leaders report reduced engagement from burnout, compared 2% of frontline staff, which means the people at the top feel fine and the people at the bottom are drowning. And nobody's connecting the two. Look, that's complete disconnect between what leaders think is happening and what's actually happening on the ground, which is what we would call crisis. Not the burnout itself, the blindness to it, because you can't fix what you can't see, and most leaders aren't even looking. Let me take you back a little bit. My first leadership role, I was in a fintech company in London, dealing with equities and retail stockbroking, and I was laser focused on one thing: numbers, targets, results. To me, success was output. I assumed everyone else saw it the same way. I was relentless. Every meeting was about the pipeline. Every conversation was about performance. I was so consumed with hitting the damn numbers that I forgot about the human beings delivering them. Then I noticed something. One team member, someone who'd been reliable, consistent, one of my strongest performers, started slipping, turning up late, losing focus, going quiet in meetings, behavioral changes that were obvious in hindsight but invisible to me at the time because I wasn't looking at them. I was looking at spreadsheets. And my first reaction was clear frustration. Why weren't they keeping up? I was ready to pull them aside and have a performance conversation straight away. The old school kind. And the kind where you tell someone to sort it out. But something stopped me. Instead of reprimanding them, I asked one question. Simple question, is everything all right? That single question opened a conversation I wasn't expecting. Personal challenges I knew nothing about. Things that had been affecting their work for weeks while I was too busy looking at dashboards to notice a human being was struggling right in front of me. And I offered support, flexibility, resources, and the performance didn't just recover, it transformed completely. More importantly, our relationship changed. They trusted me differently, not because I fixed their problem, but because I'd seen them. And that's when I learned something I've carried with me ever since. You're not leading a spreadsheet, you're leading people. And if you're measuring output by ignoring energy, if you're tracking performance but not tracking it on the person behind it, you're not leading at all. You're managing a machine, and machines don't break quietly. People do. So there's 4 signs your team is breaking and you're missing them. So how do you know these signs? If your team is quietly breaking underneath you, what does it actually look like? Because it doesn't look like drama. It doesn't look like walkouts or arguments. It looks like compliance. And that's why you miss it. So here's sign number 1, which I'm calling the silence in meetings. When was the last time someone in your team genuinely pushed back on your idea? Not a polite suggestion, a proper challenge. Because if you can't remember, that's not because your ideas are perfect. It's because your team has learned that disagreement is unsafe. I've seen this firsthand. I worked at a major bank in the Middle East where fear dictated how people behaved. People kept their heads down. Ideas were shut down before they were even shared. And nobody wanted to be the one who failed publicly. And when they did speak in meetings, it was only to agree with whoever was the most senior in the room. That wasn't respect, it was survival. And it was invisible to the leaders who'd created it. Sign number 2, your best people stop trying. This is the one that kills me. You've got high performers, people with fire, with ideas, with ambition. And slowly, quietly, that fire goes out. They stop volunteering for projects. They stop suggesting improvements. They do exactly what's required and nothing more. And you mistake that for contentment. They're doing their job. They must be fine. No, they've given up trying to be heard. And that's the worst. That's worse than someone leaving, because someone who leaves makes noise. Someone who checks out stays in their seat and takes their potential with them. Sign number 3, you're the last to know. If the problems are being escalated to, if the problems are you, fully formed, already festered, already political, already a crisis, that's a sign. It means your team didn't feel they could bring it to you earlier. They didn't feel it was safe to flag something when it was small. So they waited, and now it's big, and now you're firefighting. And the cycle repeats. I've coached leaders who genuinely believe they have an open door policy. The door is open. Nobody's walking through it. That's not access. That's just a decoration. Sign 4. So your emotional inconsistency has trained them. This is the hardest one to hear because it points directly to you. If your team doesn't predict how you'll react, whether you'll be calm or explosive, supportive or dismissive, open or shut down, they'll default to silence because silence is safe. That's what happened to me after that payments project meeting. My team didn't stop performing. They stopped trusting. They stopped being honest. They stopped bringing me the truth because the last time they did, I made them regret it. And that's on me, not them. 100% on me. So what does rebuilding actually look like here? Now, I could leave you with this episode with a diagnosis, right? 4 signs you're failing your team. Feel bad about. Go home. But that's not what I do here. I'm a coach, so let me tell you what actually works. Because I've seen teams rebuilt from ground up. I've done it myself, and I've helped other leaders do the same thing. Back at the bank in the Middle East, a leader, not going to name names here, but arrived from a firm that actually encouraged open thinking. Within days, they could see the culture of silence, and they didn't just diagnose it, they acted on it. Their first move was weekly forums. No slides, no hierarchy here, just a space to think out loud. Any idea was welcome, no matter how rough. They followed through publicly, supporting small experiments, acknowledging effort, not just results. And when one team failed to deliver on a new process, they didn't punish them. They asked what they'd learned and how could it be reused. Within 6 months, the mood completely shifted. Teams started collaborating without being asked. People initiated or took initiative. They stayed late, not out of obligation, but because they were invested. Productivity didn't just improve, it multiplied. Now, here's what they understood the most, what most leaders don't. You can't demand trust. You can't mandate psychological safety either. You can't email engagement into existence. And you have to build it all. One conversation at a time, one honest moment at a time. One decision to listen instead of react at a time. At my own failure in that team meeting, the rebuild didn't happen overnight. I had to earn it back. I started by practicing intentional pauses. Before reacting, I'd stop and ask myself, what's the root cause here? How can I address this constructively instead of emotionally? So I shifted from performance interrogation to reflective questioning, and slowly, painfully, my team started trusting me again. Not because I told them to, because I proved it was safe to. See, look, that's the work. It's not glamorous. It's not a framework you can roll out in a workshop, for example. It's not showing up differently, consistently, until the people around you believe it's actually real. All right, here. This is the moment, and this is the most direct I've been across this entire series, okay? And I'm going to keep that energy right to the end. So what I want you to do, and this is your move here. So here's the first thing. This week, ask every member of your team one question. What's one thing I could do differently that would make your job easier? Not in a group setting, one-on-one. And then when they answer, and some of them will test you with something small before they give you the real answer. So just be aware of that. Don't defend it. Don't explain. Just listen. Because the moment you react, you've confirmed exactly why they stopped telling you the truth in the first place. Number 2, run an honest self-audit on your emotional consistency. Think about the last 3 times something went wrong on your team. How did you react? Were you calm and constructive, or did you let frustration dictate the room? Because your team has already answered that question for themselves. And their behavior, their silence, their compliance, their hesitation is the mirror. You just haven't been looking at it. Number 3, stop measuring your team's health by their output. Start measuring it by their honesty. A team that tells you the truth, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's early, even when it makes your day harder. That's a healthy team. A team that only tells you what you want to hear, that's a team performing for you, not with you. And that's a world of difference. So let me leave you with this. The hardest thing I've ever had to accept as a leader is that I was the problem. Not the market, not the targets, not the team, me. My reactions, my blindness, my assumptions that because people were compliant, they were okay. They weren't. And by the time I realized it, I'd already done the damage. In the 5 states of optimization, the people state is the one most leaders skip. They focus on planning, on productivity, on performance. But the people state is where everything either holds together or falls apart. Because you can have the best strategy in the world. If the people delivering it don't trust you, it means nothing. Your team is not a machine. They are human beings with energy, with doubts, with limits, and they are watching you. Every reaction, every meeting, every moment you choose to listen or you choose to react, you are setting the temperature. And right now, For a lot of you listening, that temperature is too cold for anyone to speak up, too unpredictable for anyone to be honest, and too focused on output for anyone to feel seen. So fix that, not with a policy, not with a town hall, with you, one conversation at a time. So if this episode hit you in the gut, it was meant to. Share it with a leader who needs to hear it. If you want to go deeper, grab a copy of my book, Burn the Rules, Lead from Within. And remember to like, follow, and subscribe to this channel or anywhere you're watching and listening to this. I'm Chet Hirani. This is Burn the Rules, and I'll see you on the next one. Before you go, take a moment to think about what stayed with you from this conversation. Not what sounded impressive, but what challenged how you think, decide, or lead. See, leadership isn't something you wait for. It's something you practice internally, daily, and deliberately. And remember this, you can't lead a life that matters by following rules that don't. If this episode gave you perspective, share it with someone who's ready to take more control of how they lead and perform. And subscribe wherever you listen, and keep redefining leadership on your own terms.